All right, so we are now recording. Thank you, and welcome everybody to the May 28th Directors Meeting. Appreciate you joining us today. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Vic for his announcement, and then we'll go ahead and get into the agenda.
Okay, one of the things I wanted to find out is how many people were going to be attending the summer symposium. The Fed sent me an email and they wanted to know if you are planning to attend, if you could send me the names of people and their email, that would be wonderful, because the Feds want to find out how many people from Iowa are attending. So I had sent out an invite for that. You have to register, and it's going to be a virtual one, so you don't have to travel to do that one. So, and those of you on the evaluation committee, we are going to be sharing the data agreement template that you made. I was at a meeting and I shared it out with some other states, and everybody thought it was fantastic. So my compliments to your hard work. Okay. Financials. You guys should be working on your spend down for the fourth quarter, and any carryover requires an email request and approval. And then the OSTCP grant is being entered into CASA, so you should be all set for your fourth quarter if you have any expenses and you're one of the participants in that new grant. So that's a good thing. Let's move on to program updates. Now the APR, I sent out a reminder this morning because I took a look at it and we're only at 11%. And this window has been open for about a month. I think maybe what's happened is people think that if they didn't have a summer program last year, there's nothing that they have to do. Well, you still need to go into the system if you normally have a summer program and you didn't run it because of the pandemic. There's a text box for you to type in how the pandemic affected your program, and then there's another box where you check off that will say that your center was inactive. So those are two things you need to go into the system and do. And that window for summer 2020 closes on the 30th of the month. And then we've got the other windows that are displayed in the agenda. And this will be the last time that we have 3 reporting periods. The new APR will be a little bit better. We'll just be reporting data twice a year. Okay, this is also when we're going to be collecting that data from the teacher survey, and we've got a link to the template. And site visits. I know in a previous meeting, I thought that we would be doing site visits, but then I was informed that they didn't want us to do site visits. So there won't be any until come September. So that's kind of a good thing, and maybe not. Gives you more time to get ready.
Yeah. Maybe one thing that I would point out with site visits is, again, the monitoring form can also be found on the website on that grant info page. So if you'd like to take a look at that, maybe give yourself a refresher about the types of things that Vic will be looking for when he does his site visit, that can be found there. Vic, do you want me to handle the committee update?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. So we were hoping that Elena Zallar from Council Bluffs, who's the chair of the communications committee, would be on the call today, but she's actually traveling with one of her athletes for tennis, I believe, today. So I don't know if it's such a great day to play tennis, but she's she's tied up with other activities today. A couple of things that we wanted to get some input or maybe some guidance from the directors today on. So feel free to unmute and give me your response or drop this into the chat. The first idea was that the communications committee felt like they were perhaps uniquely positioned compared to some of the other committees to maybe lend a hand across all committees for support and work. But to do that, they were hoping to maybe get a little bit more information about what it is the other committees were working on. And an idea that came up from that was that if at these directors' calls, if we could take just a section of these calls and have the chairperson of each of our committees, which I believe attend the directors' calls, just give a very brief report. So if you're on the Family Engagement Committee, you're the chair of that, you would simply unmute yourself and say the Family Engagement Committee is working on this, this, and this, and the Program Support Committee is working on this, this, and this. And then that will help the Communications Committee to perhaps develop templates or guidance or materials that could support the work that you're all doing. With that, then, we also had an internal discussion, and when I say we, what I mean is Vic and the Iowa After School Alliance team. And we talked about how the Communications Committee was perhaps needing a little bit more focus and momentum moving forward into this new fiscal year for the work around this committee. So we're proposing that we would change the name and focus of the Communications Committee to the Communications, Partnerships, and Sustainability Committee. Right now, sustainability is currently living with evaluation, but we would take that kind of component or piece from the Evaluation Committee, because the Evaluation Committee is going to be very busy in working on new templates connected to the new GEPRA measures and APR system. And that way it just kind of helps to maybe equalize that work. So I guess the two things that I'd like some input on right away, and again, unmute or drop in the chat, is do you like the idea of having just a section of these agendas be a report out from the committees so that we can kind of hear what everybody's working on? And then do you have any concerns with changing the name and the focus or intent of the Communications Committee? So Cassie says yes. Sam says that makes sense. Beth says great idea for changes. Does anybody have concerns? Jennifer, yes, let's change the name, good idea. Jenny likes the idea, change is good, says Billy. Again, any concerns at all? All right. Again, please feel free to type those into the chat, or you can always reach out to me through email as well. I'm happy to communicate with you that way as well. Nikki says it sounds good on their end. So with that being said, I think if this was like super formal, we would be like, you know, bang the gavel, motion carried. I think we'll go ahead and move forward with this, but we're not super formal. So I would just say in the future at these directors calls, we'll build in a section for these report outs, and I will be communicating alongside Elena with the kind of purpose or intent. We'll come up with like a template or something like that for the chairs of those other committees to have ready to report out at these calls. So thank you, everyone.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Vic, do you want to cover this last little section
Sure.
here about the requirement? Yeah, okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
And, you know, I think we've just achieved a milestone here. I mean, the evaluation committee simply had too much work. And, you know, imagine being in a meeting at the DE where something comes off the plate. Yeah, it's actually being shifted because the communication committee, their work was kind of light. And this all aligns well with the work that they're doing, reaching out in the communities. Okay, the evaluation committee has been working on new forms for the new GEPRA, and they're making terrific progress on that area. And about committees, there's a requirement that you attend one committee per cohort per year, with the exception of the new grantee staff transition committee. That's counted as PD, but it doesn't count as your one committee because it's there simply to support the staff. So some of our districts may have new people coming in, especially if you're a larger district, you may have some new staff and want to put them in this committee. And when we get a new director, we put them in this committee and it meets monthly to get you up to speed with the grant. We're trying to provide as much support for everyone as possible. So make sure that you let us know when you get new staff.
Yeah. Vic, I think the only other thing that I'd like to just casually mention with committees today is it is kind of the time of year where we confirm our rosters for the upcoming year. And again, we know that there's going to be some staff change. There's always staff change, and we'll handle that as it comes along. But I would say in the next maybe 2 to 3 weeks, look for an email from me being sent out to the current roster list for each committee. If you are no longer interested in being on that committee, you want to switch to another committee, there's maybe been a staffing change, a person's no longer with your organization or has been maybe refocused in their purpose or intent, if you could just respond to that email and let me know, that would be greatly appreciated. Likewise, if we have any name changes or anything of that nature that needs to be addressed. So thank you, everyone. Vic, I think we're ready for the attendance updates then.
Wonderful. I'm going to need to share the screen on this one. Oops, it says I cannot share my screen. Let me try
Okay,
this
Vic,
again.
you should be able to now.
Hey, it worked. Okay. So this came from Dr. Cravey. I had asked him to take a look at our attendance. And let me tell you, attendance is critical on this grant. You know, we've already had the practice of if you didn't meet your attendance goals that you yourself defined, we'd have to take some, reduce your funding for the next year. But going forward, we are looking at attendance very carefully, and you know they want to get all the kids back in the fall, and hopefully we'll be up at full attendance again. But anyway, this is looking at the data, and our average for all the centers would be 90 kids per site. So that's a pretty high number. And for our rurals, it's a little bit lower. You know, the rurals have a little bit smaller number. So, you know, we're going to be looking at the, the middle ground on this and monitoring the attendance carefully because that's considered your part of your performance for renewability of your awards. And for those of you that are having some trouble with attendance, you should always contact me immediately. I've had a lot of success with how to boost up this attendance, and although we've had a pandemic, there are things that still work. We've got a lot of centers that even with the pandemic, they're serving, they've got over 100 kids at their site. So we will be having some updates and about attendance and how to get your attendance up higher. So keep that in mind. We may have to go to, like a minimum attendance requirement, but if we do that, that'll be in the RFA. So I'm going to stop this share and we'll go back into the agenda because I've got another item to share with you.
Yeah, let me grab that again. All right.
Okay. We've also got one for partnerships, and those are critical for sustainability. And also let me let you know that they're working right now on the CASA system, so it'll track attendance, and it will track in the future compliance and non-compliance. And you know, there's good and bad in that. The bad in being that once you get in the CASA system, it may stay with you for a long time. So now I'm going to share the work that Dr. Cravey did on the partnerships. And as you can see, we've got an average number of 26 partners for an urban and 20 for rural. And our partnerships have gone down a little bit during the pandemic, although some folks have increased their partnerships. And, you know, maybe it's because there were restrictions at the district level. So, you know, this year we're going to be looking at increasing our partnerships as well. That's just so important to us being more sustainable, because what happens if, you know, your funding runs out, you didn't score high enough to get your application approved, you know, what are you going to do? If you have some sustainability, maybe you can't go 5 days a week with after school, but maybe with your community, you can do 3 days a week. And there's other sources that you can do. DHS funding has, you know, they've increased their funding. Plus, if you do their PD, you can actually qualify for more money over time by meeting certain qualifications. And that funding is a little easier to get than the 21st century funding. And some of our programs use both, and that's okay. So we want to encourage you to do things to keep your programs healthy and high quality.
We have a comment / question. This is from Billy.
Okay.
She says, due to the pandemic, will there be some lenience here? Will this year just kind of be used as a wash? They're expecting partnerships wanted to back off during COVID-19. Will it be used against them?
No. Yeah, you would not believe how much leniency. Let me give you an example. I have submitted $2 million for carryover this year. Last year it was 1 million. So right there, that's a huge leniency. And, you know, I am continually in meetings, not only with the feds, but, you know, at the department, and work, you know, trying to mitigate some of the things. And, you know, if you haven't noticed, things are, you know, kind of strict now at the department. We've had, you know, there's been a lot of, you know, noteworthy in the news kind of compliance things for people not doing what the department wants. So keep that in mind as we, you know, move forward. And I'm going to do my best to keep you guys updated and let you know things a little bit in advance. That way you know, at least you're not caught off guard when these things come. And we are going to be going through some more changes in the next school year with the new CASA system, but we'll get through it together. And that's another reason why we want to do the directors meeting on a monthly basis, so that we can incrementally keep you informed, because I don't think the annual basis will work going forward, and to keep you updated with everything you need.
Yeah. Maybe before we get to that part of the agenda, just again, a quick pause to see if anybody else has any questions or concerns about attendance or partnerships that you want to bring up right now.
Yeah, we'll have some special meetings on partnerships too, because yeah, we need to work with you guys. And in fact, we'll have a session at Impact about partnerships. So you
Yeah,
might want to make
absolutely.
sure that you attend the impact. If just for that session, it would be worth it, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, so moving ahead here, and this is what Vic kind of mentioned, is the other thing that we wanted to get some immediate feedback on from everyone is we feel like these directors' meetings have been going pretty well. You know, taking about an hour of your time each month to just check in. I mean, let's face it, we have a lot going on, right? So we would like to maybe have you consider a few different options. So first and foremost, as Vic just said, you know, perhaps what we would do is if we decide we want to continue to meet monthly via a Zoom call, we would consider eliminating the annual directors meeting, which was typically held on the Wednesday before the Impact Conference happened. So in the past, the directors would meet in the morning, there would be a pre-conference workshop in the afternoon, and then Thursday and Friday would be the Impact Conference. I think what we're proposing is to eliminate that directors meeting that morning, replace it with a workshop, an in-person workshop specifically for the RFA, and then everything else business as usual. So pre-conference workshop, and then of course the Impact Conference. So that's kind of one option that we're considering. So I guess I would pause for a moment and ask people's opinions. Do you like the monthly meetings? And would you support eliminating the directors meeting and replacing it with an RFA workshop at Impact? So again, please unmute or drop into the chat.
Oh, and another thing, Crystal, is that annual directors meeting was an in-person meeting. So we'll replace that with virtual monthly meetings. So that should be a lot more convenient than having to drive to Des Moines, you know, once a year and sit for a couple hours.
Right. So there's kind of a second component to that I'll get to in just a second. So let's see here. It looks like Barb says she likes the monthly meetings. Nikki says she likes both those options. Shani's on board. Katie gave a thumbs up. Cassie says yes. Amy, Amy and Jennifer both say yes. Beth says yes. Driving to Des Moines is hard. Allison says monthly meetings are good. Okay, Billy, yep. Lynn, yes. Beth also likes not having the extra night away, so that's kind of a nice thing too. So, okay, does anybody have any concerns with eliminating that annual in-person meeting? Because I think we might have a secondary option for this just in case. So I guess I'll just dive into this. So this item number 2 here, we recognize that several of you would be coming in for Impact regardless. So the other thing that we had considered is if we eliminate the directors meeting, would you be interested in having just a workshop block where Vic is available in a room, hanging out, and then if you need anything of his time, you could choose to go visit that particular work block session with him to be able to talk through any of those things that you might want to run past him in person. And or if you're interested in doing some networking with other sites, that kind of block of time could also be used for that purpose as well. So again, I'll open it up to see thoughts regarding that.
Well, and another thing we can do, Crystal, is we could have a PD session just for the directors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Billy has a comment. She says, in case of emergency, we should have an emergency session, and she likes having Vic hang out with us, so that's okay. Beth likes the idea of a director's session. Anybody else have strong thoughts or feelings about that? Lynn says yes. Barb says she also wants to have Vic available for questions. And again, yeah, Vic hangs out with us the entire conference, so he's almost always available. So that's good. Nikki likes the adjustment too. Okay. Well, again, I feel like we're being very productive as a group today. So I think what we'll do is we will plan to eliminate our director's call on the morning of the 22nd. We will replace that with an RFA workshop that morning. We'll have the pre-conference workshop the afternoon of the 22nd. And then the 23rd and 24th of September will be impact, but know that at least one of those workshop sessions will be dedicated to kind of an open Q&A / director session type of thing with Vic, if you would like that. And Nikki, I think I just answered your question. So yeah.
Crystal, there's one thing we forgot about. We
What's
need
that?
to add that Tim Glenn will be hanging out with me.
Okay.
And so that, you know, in the past he did a session. We may have him do an update on the APR on one of our monthly meetings, but, you know, he likes to go to the conference too. So we need to list him in there so he can get out of the office.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we'll plan on keeping our monthly check-in calls moving forward. There may be, again, we try not to schedule those until we have a decent agenda for you, because we don't want to meet for the sake of meeting. So if we ever get to a month where we feel like perhaps there's just not a ton to discuss, we may give everybody the month off, but we will go ahead and move forward with that plan then. All right. Vic, I think we're ready for RFA updates then.
Okay, this is exciting. As of this morning, the official announcement template has been posted on the IDOE website, and the awards have been announced. The contracts are all done, not just the new awardees, all the contracts. However, you know, we are in a new bureau. We're now in the Bureau of School Improvement, and I have a new bureau chief. We've got a new deputy director. We've got a new director. And so procedures are a little bit different. I'm waiting on approval, you know. As they learn about the program, things should go a little faster, but right now, you know, they're looking at everything, which is okay, because it takes about a year for a new bureau chief to get a good handle on this program. And, but, you know, things are moving forward. And then once it gets to finance, then they'll get those contracts out to you. And hopefully this year will be faster than last year. So we're going to have a new awardee training. It's going to be June 11th at 10 a.m. And we'll go over, you know, some of the things that you need to know. And we might spend a little bit of time on the new CASA system. It's a little different than things we've used in the past, like IO grants. That thing was clunky. It didn't change from day one. Whereas the CASA system, they are able to make substantial updates to it. They were able to add all our community group members in there. And like I said, they're working on that to be the one-stop shop for districts. So as I learn more about what's coming down the road, I will let you guys know.
Yeah, thank you, Vic. So if you were one of the funded entities in cohort 16, congratulations. And you should have received a calendar invitation to the new awardee training on June 11th. I believe everybody has received that and responded positively. So again, we'll have a training that day and we'll be able to move forward. So Just a couple of quick updates from the Iowa After School Alliance, and then Brittany is on the call today too. So Brittany, if there's anything that you would like to add, feel free to unmute yourself as well. Do want to remind everyone that the June 8th summer workshop is coming up, oh gosh, 2 weeks now. It's here, like I blinked and it's here. We have a really great agenda planned for that day. Just a gentle reminder to everyone that you are required to send a person to impact. We prefer a team of people, but if you just, one person suffices for your grant requirements. You're also required to attend either the spring or the summer workshop. So if you attended back in March, you're technically off the hook for the summer workshop. If you were unable to attend in March, you'll want to make sure that you attend this June 8th session. However, we would also just encourage you to think about if you're able to attend. Again, really good lineup. The information was sent, I think, maybe a week and a half ago, and it's also been in our newsletter and other places as well. So if you'd like, I can send the agenda out again. Let me know if you need that. But again, a great lineup of presenters that day. Our second bullet is kind of just a standing bullet here, and that's just in regards to the A+ for after school nomination. We're just always looking for that because we want to be able to reach out to people and recognize the good work that they do. So if that's something that you have somebody for, Emily has shared the link in the past, but if you need that, don't hesitate to reach out to me to have that. So, okay, Brittany, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, just one quick thing, Crystal, thank you. So many of you know that we offer an AmeriCorps program through the Iowa After School Alliance for the summer. Right now, we are exploring the possibility of expanding our AmeriCorps program to make it a year-round school year after school AmeriCorps program. Just because we know that many communities are looking to expand or create after school programs in response to COVID learning loss and the pandemic, and just helping kids get back to where they were, or even better, now that the pandemic is ending, hopefully. So I'm gonna plug a link to a survey into the chat. Right now, we're in the very beginning stages of thinking about what that program could look like, and just want some input from the field about if there's interest in a program, in an AmeriCorps program like this, how many members you might want, things like that. So that's really my only update for today. And I'm gonna drop that in the chat right now. So if you all could take that, it should take 5 minutes of your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. I did just also drop a PDF of the agenda into the chat today. So you can feel free to grab that there as well.
One thing I want to just say, dealing with attending these committee meetings and the workshops and all, we've been keeping track of your attendance now for the last few years. And those of you that got an award, you had a little comment down at the bottom about your attendance at the committees and things. And some of you did a great job. Some of you got a little note from me that says you need to improve your attendance. Let me give you an example of how this could hurt you big time. The last competition, we had several grants where the score was exactly the same. What happens if we get near the end and we've got a couple of grants exactly the same? I can use the attendance, somebody that doesn't attend these meetings, which is required in your grant contract. If you didn't do a good job and the other person, same score is attending everything, they're the ones that are going to get the money. So you need to be aware that, and all these committees and PDs are designed to help your programs be better and, to grow in the future. So it behooves you to attend as many as you can.
Yeah, thanks, Vic. So our last agenda item is other, and I did just receive a chat from Nikki that it sounds like this is perhaps an asked and answered, but I wanted to just verbally say, Nikki had reached out to me from Council Bluffs and had some questions regarding database and tracking systems, and wanted to know if she could take a moment during our director's call this week to be able to maybe pick a few brains. It sounds like she maybe did that offline, but Nikki, feel free to jump in here if you need further information. While you're maybe prepping to do that, I would also just generally say that if any of you at any time have something that you want to bring up at a director's meeting, or ask of your peers, or ask of Vic or the Iowa After School Alliance team and myself, we are happy to address those during these calls. Okay, hold on, Cassie, we'll get to your question in just a second here. Nikki, I'm gonna be quiet then for a moment and just see if there's anything else that you needed to add to your original question.
Thank you, Crystal. No, I'm good. I actually reached out to you and Vic, and then Vic called me and we chatted about it. And I reached out to a couple other people just to get some information about why they switched, if they've already switched, or what their favorite things about youth services and things. So pretty awesome network that everybody's so open to chatting about that. So that was nice, but thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you. Glad you got that taken care of. But again, just that general reminder to people that if you want to use a little bit of the time during these calls to address some of those things, you just need to reach out ahead of time and we'll get you on the agenda, and or you will address that during the other. So we do have a question in the chat. This is from Cassie. She says, when we complete the professional development activity report, are we to include the director's calls under statewide PD? Now that they're monthly, she wasn't sure how to proceed, and Vic's response is yes. The director's calls do count as professional development for your program directors. So again, as you're completing that report and as part of your financial claim, you'll want to indicate that as so. So are there any other questions from people today regarding any of the things that we have talked about on the call or anything else? Vic, this is from Lynn. She says she realizes the pandemic affected many things. Is there any progress on data systems for 21st century grant programs?
Well, let me tell you what happened. Last year, we were told no more contracts. And I have 2 contracts. One of them is with the Alliance, and you know, they're still here. And then the second one is with our state evaluators. Those are absolutely critical. It took me 6 months to get the evaluation contract through the system. And, you know, let me tell you, I have, you know, we're complying with federal statute that we do these things. We're required to have a state evaluation. We're required to provide capacity building. So, you know, I had to write rationales for continuing these contracts. Now, so that put things that were not, you know, a must to do on the back burner. Some of you have data systems, and that's fine. Moving to one that's a state data system, you know, that's still on the back burner. It's not critical for us to move forward. And, you know, when it takes me 6 months to get through a contract, you know, that is, you know, another thing that I don't absolutely have to do to move our grant forward. What we should do is perhaps do a subcommittee to get this thing revived. And some of you now have a little more experience. You've been using more than one data system. So your input on this would be, you know, critical. But keep in mind with doing a bid, and this would have to be a bid, that usually the low bid gets the contract. And, you know, we've got 3 major systems, and there might be a couple of other ones that are being used. I would like to, if you're using something that's not CitySpan, Cayenne, and then there's the one that Cassie's using in Burlington. I forget the name of that one. Those are the 3 major ones. And then there might be some minor ones. If you're using something Easy reports. Yes, thank you, Cassie. If you're using something other than those three, we need to capture that so that I can at least limit the bids to the ones that we're using in Iowa. Otherwise, there's probably 24 different systems out there. And if we post the bid, we would be getting deluged by 24 different vendors. So.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up again, Lynn. I will go ahead and add that to our internal meeting that we have with Vic every week, the Alliance and Vic and I, and the rest of the team. So we can decide how we want to move forward with that then. Okay. Any other questions today? Okay, Vic, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we sign off for the morning?
Well, I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful Memorial Weekend, and just to say, keep up the good work that you're doing with kids. And, if you have, something nice that comes up, shoot me an email and share it with me. I will share that with the feds. So, we're doing a good job here in Iowa compared with other states. I don't know if you're aware of that we serve more kids than the state of Missouri. The state of Missouri has about double the population, but yet they serve fewer kids. So that's a nice feather in our cap that, we're moving forward with these community partners, and we're addressing the needs of some of the most vulnerable kids in our state, and we want to continue that moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, if nobody else has anything for the greater good today, I think we'll go ahead and stop the recording, and we'll wish everybody well and see you in June.